The Nothing Phone 1 was an incredible phone for its time, even being recommended over the base model iPhone for half the price. But today, is it any good? Well, yes, but there's a big reason why I actually wouldn't recommend you go buy it used. So I've been using the Nothing Phone 1 for 3 years, and I think the design looks very unique and very different. At its time, no phone looked like this. And so far, no other company has really replicated this transparent tech aesthetic quite like Nothing has done. I personally like the white model of the Nothing Phone 1 better than the black model because it shows the details more, especially when using a case, and it attracts less fingerprints. But at the time when I got it, the black Nothing Phone 1 was cheaper than the white one. Modern Nothing phones don't have as many glyphs and look very different. And I would not say one is per se better than the others, but they are very different, the Nothing Phone 1 and for example the Nothing Phone 3A. The build quality too is great, aluminum rails and a glass back, which is very premium. Since then, companies like Samsung have released phones that do have the same, but at its time it was very premium for the very low price point. But the glass itself is only Gorilla Glass 5, which isn't that great compared to modern phones which have Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, for example the Galaxy A36. Speaking of glass, the screen protector I use on my Nothing Phone 1 is the one from Protect. This is not a sponsor, but I really like their screen protectors because they are so cheap and they are very durable. So go check them out. When the Nothing Phone 1 released, it had a pretty good chipset with the Snapdragon 778G+. Nowadays though, you can get phones like the Nothing Phone 3A, which beats this in Antutu by around 30%. So you can see how these days it isn't the best for its price. In normal use though, I haven't really noticed it slowing down. It takes pictures quick, it's pretty smooth, and there isn't much downgrade. I mean, it's only been 3 years. Like, it's not like I've used this phone for 5 years plus. If you want to watch movies or videos on your phone, a good display is crucial. And I'm glad to say the Nothing Phone 1 still has that, even compared to modern phones. It has an OLED 120Hz display with uniform bezels, much like newer budget phones. The camera is actually a part where I'm noticing it lagging, because it's not as good as modern phones. When you zoom in on a picture taken with the Nothing Phone 1, you can see a bit of grain. And I wouldn't really recommend zooming in at more than 2x, and at 2x it isn't amazing. I mean, you'd get much better pictures out of something like the modern Nothing Phone 3A Pro, which sure does cost a bit more than this. But a weird part about this phone is that it actually has a better ultra-wide camera than even the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, which is one of the newest Nothing phones. And that's pretty crazy in my opinion, but it's because Nothing decided to cut costs on the ultra-wide camera on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. So there they only had an 8 megapixel camera, whereas on the Nothing Phone 1, which I'm actually recording this video on right now so you can judge the image quality for yourself, that has a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera. So I guess if you want a Nothing phone and you really care about having the best ultra-wide camera for some reason, I mean it's okay, like it's pretty good, but if you really just care about getting the highest megapixel count on your ultra wide camera, you should probably not get a Nothing phone unless you want, you know, the Nothing Phone 3, but the Nothing Phone 3 doesn't even have the best ultra-wide camera. Like, enough of that rant, let's get on with it. So it charges at 33 watt wired and 15 watt wireless, which is actually quite fast. It's not the fastest out there, like you can get faster phones from companies like Xiaomi or OnePlus or something, but it's quite acceptable. And I mean, you can charge your phone in like under an hour, I think normally. I'm not quite sure, I have the full number on screen, but that's pretty good in my opinion. It's also got reverse wireless charging, which is a very premium feature, but it actually isn't that useful because it only charges at like 5 watts. And in my experience, it actually charges really poorly. For example, I tried charging my friend's iPhone with this and it almost didn't even work. So I haven't used it for like a year plus. But in terms of wireless charging, this is one of the cheapest phones you can get with wireless charging, because the only like budget mid-range phone I know of that has wireless charging is the Pixel 9a and all the other Pixel A phones. So this was one of the main reasons why I actually chose the Nothing Phone 1 at the time when I bought it. So that's something to consider. If you're looking for a phone with wireless charging, this might be it. But stick around to the end so I can tell you why I actually think you shouldn't buy this phone. But what about the battery life? I mean, surely after 3 years it must have downgraded. I've actually only used it for 2 years. But here's what I have to tell you about battery. So my battery life was pretty good when I first got this phone, but now I have started to notice it lagging. Sometimes I need to charge my phone like more than 1 time a day. And that's a little annoying, but it doesn't happen that often. But especially when taking photos and videos, the battery can drain quick. And when using data roaming, the battery drains like instantly. Like I can't even get half a day of use sometimes when using data roaming. I think that's just a thing with data roaming, but like that's kind of crazy actually, you know. Now for the reason I actually wouldn't recommend you go buy this phone used right now. And that lies in the software. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love NothingOS. It's one of my favorite phone softwares out there because it has smooth animations, it's super minimal and it has satisfying sounds and it's really that nothing aesthetic. But it doesn't get any more software updates, the Nothing Phone 1 specifically. And in under a year, it won't get any more security updates. I mean, when it doesn't get any more security updates, it's way more vulnerable to hacks and therefore I wouldn't recommend it. So guys, that's like the conclusion of this. I wouldn't recommend it because soon it doesn't get any more security updates. So instead I would recommend you go out and buy something like the Nothing Phone 3A, which does get more security updates. It gets all the way up to Android 18, which releases in late 2027. And in terms of security updates, it gets those all the way until 2031, so you can use this phone for a long time. And it's the same case with the cheaper CMF Phone 2 Pro if you're on a bit of a budget. So I would recommend that. So guys, that was it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to see more Nothing content in the future. Thanks for watching.